the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Kenny. Here. Councilmember Cody.
Here.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Here.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Whitlow.
Here.
Councilmember Gusted.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Planning and Zoning Administrator. Here. Public Safety Director.
Here.
City Engineer.
Here.
All set, ma'am.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Citizen comments and agenda-related items. Is there anyone who would like to comment on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All agenda items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approve the consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, approval of payroll, cash balances report, and notification regarding next work session.
I'll make a motion that council take action to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gudstad, supported by Councilmember Goodspeed, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Gusted.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitlow.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cody.
Yes.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Motion approved, ma'am.
Thank you. Unfinished business, we have none. New business. Consideration of local revenue sharing board grant applications. The local revenue sharing board distributes 2% from the Little River Casino. The deadline for the 2015 Cycle 1 application is Friday, March 6, 2015 at 5 p.m. The city staff has prepared 3 grant applications for submission to the local revenue sharing board. Council has requested an opportunity to approve individual grant applications. This agenda item will include 3 separate motions, one for each grant application. First one is for the submission of a grant for the DXE heart monitor for the rescue unit in the amount of $15,000. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to authorize submission of grant application to the local revenue sharing board for the DXE heart monitor for the rescue unit in the amount of $15,000.
I'll second that.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Smith, supported by Councilmember Cody, to approve the grant for the DXE heart monitor. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, can you explain what that DXE heart monitor is?
I can't. Dixie is how we say it, but a heart monitor is that big unit that you see when we go on a patient call. We do EKGs, we can defibrillate them, we can check all their vitals, blood pressure, capnography, oxygen use. We can actually run an EKG and then send it to the hospital by modem right away. It's a required piece of equipment on any ALS rig. We have one on Medic 5. We're hoping to, now that we have everybody trained, or enough people trained, we're hoping to get our second rig licensed as a advanced life support as well. So we could run both rigs ALS rather than one of the basic, one in ALS. This would give us the foundation piece to bring the second rig up to speed to be licensed in advanced life support.
Okay, thank you.
Can you please take a roll?
Councilmember Whitlow.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cody.
Yes.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Councilmember Gusted.
Yes.
Motion approved, ma'am.
Thank you. The next grant application is for tuition to educate 1 EMT basic to level paramedic in the amount of $12,000. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to authorize submission of a grant application to the local revenue sharing board for tuition to educate 1 EMT basic to level paramedic in the amount of $12,000.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Smith, supported by Councilmember Cody, to approve the grant authorization for $12,000. Is there any discussion? Please take the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Councilmember Guston.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitlow.
Yes.
Motion approved, Mayor.
Thank you. Third and last grant application is for $3,000 for tactical ballistic vests. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the council take action to authorize the submission of a grant application to local revenue sharing board for 2 tactical ballistic vests in the amount of $3,000.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gudstad, supported by Councilmember Whitliff, to approve the grant for 2 tactical ballistic vests for $3,000. Is there any discussion?
I have one question, this is for the chief, and, I'm approved this, but, recently, the 223 green tip both are in discussion for going through vests, if they hold it. Is that really true for 223, would 223 both go through this?
This vest here is designed for heavy armor. This is different than what we normally wear every day. This is an outside vest that we would wear under an active shooter situation where they might be using a rifle. It definitely, if fit in the right place, would stop a rifle round at 30-06, 44 mag, big bullets. My primary thought on this piece of equipment is we have become so ingrained with police and fire and working together that if we have a situation where an officer is wearing a vest and goes in and gets hurt and doesn't have it, my paramedics want the ability to go in behind them and drag them back out. They want to have a vest, so if they're got to go into a hot zone, they can wear it and have some sort of protection. Because they're so committed to each other, they want to be able to go and help those guys out instead of sit there and watch them potentially bleed till we can neutralize the shooter. So typical EMS situation, the scene's not safe, nobody goes in. That's the way it works. These guys just want to have that opportunity there, and it's something we can share between the police and fire depending on the scenario, which way we'd all be in the same situation. So a cop could put down on top of his vest, or firefighter could put on top of the EMS gear to go in. It just gives us another level to help ensure the survivability of someone who gets involved in the shooting, or a citizen even. Even if not an officer down, if a citizen goes down, say for instance we're at the school, we move into the school, we pressure the shooter to the back. Although the shooter might not be neutralized, there may be victims behind us. With a tactical vest, EMS people could come in behind us, render some aid, grab some people, get them out of harm's way. That's really the level we're looking for. And once if we get these 2, we probably go back for 2 more next year. That's kind of the whole process we'll go with.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Any other questions? Can you please take the roll?
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cody.
Yes.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Councilmember Guston.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitlow.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Motion approved, Mayor.
Thank you. Next is the consideration of a resolution of support redevelopment ready communities certification. In February 2014, the city applied to be part of the Redevelopment Ready Communities program. The kickoff presentation was held July 2014. Staff attended the best practices training and an evaluation was conducted. On February 17, 2015, staff from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation presented the report of findings to City Council. The next step in the certification process is for the city to adopt a resolution of support to proceed. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that council take action to adopt a resolution authorizing the implementation of the recommendations necessary to receive redevelopment ready community certification from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gudstad, support by Councilmember Zelinski to approve the certification. Is there any other discussion? None, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cody.
Yes.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Councilmember Guston.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitlow.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Motion approved, Mayor.
Thank you. Next is consideration of purchasing a portable pump. The Water and Sewer Department have been implementing a plan to provide redundancy for its critical components. This portable pump station will be used in the event of a pump failure, communications failure, wastewater treatment plant maintenance, and water main breaks. The pump purchase was anticipated by the recent bond sale. However, it has since been removed. The utility department's placed this purchase as a high priority, and several items in the current budget will be deferred to allow for the purchase at this time. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion the council take action to approve the purchase of the Pioneer portable pump from Kennedy Industries in the amount of $43,015.
Is there support?
You don't table, I'll support it.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gunstead, support by Councilmember Goodspeed to approve the purchase of the Pioneer portable pump. Is there a discussion?
Yeah, I'm very disappointed in the city manager and the staff to see this item back on the agenda. I thought during a discussion during the bonding that we had an agreement that this would be put onto the budget and purchased through the motor pool. I'm not a happy camper to see it, and not only that, but to see what you're gonna give up. Fire hydrants and parts of the Arthur Street pumping station, which is a very critical pumping station. I thought this was all water underneath the bridge. To see this up here, I'm not a happy camper about this. I thought we were all in agreement for this to go through the motor pool and to be through on this budget cycle. That's my understanding.
I've got a similar opinion on that also. I believe that when we were talking about the issue, that it would be a motor pool purchased item as opposed to at the expense of other issues for the bond.
I also heard the same thing.
That was my thinking.
Also, have just a couple other questions. I assume this was through the state bid?
We actually had bid this out statewide, so we went out on I don't even remember all the different sites, but there's different municipal purchasing groups that are similar with the state bid. Unfortunately, there was several manufacturers, I think we had 9, there were 8 of them that tried to give us a lesser piece of equipment. Some were more expensive, some were less, but we had one that met the requirements that we needed. The reason why we brought this forward, and I didn't quite catch that you expected it under the motor pool, so I apologize for that. But we are trying to set out to have this equipment in place prior to the replacement of the industrial park pump station and the Sweetenham pump station, which we were hoping to get constructed and have in place before the 4th of July. If we have this pump in place, then we can assist with the bypass pumping and save a lot of the construction costs on that. If council wants us to work that through the motor pool, we can address it in that direction certainly, and then either push those 2 projects back or contract for the bypass pumping.
Back on the state bid, my curiosity had me calling to find out if this was actually, Kennedy was actually a state bid provider, which they are. Which led me to do that was the fact I saw that in your letter, your cover letter, but I didn't see it on the bid specs itself.
I see, yeah.
So I didn't know if that was really covered or not. I'm assuming that it is. Their rep said that they were a state provider.
You know, just to be fair, Councilmember Cody, I remember you talked about that's where you'd like to see it, but I don't remember council directing them to do that. We talked about various ways of possibly funding that amount, but I don't recall us directing them to do that.
No, we did not direct them. But under the discussion, even Mr. Bradford was up there and said, yes, that was doable, and through the old way of doing it, all that stuff should go through the motor pool. And I thought it was understood, and I thought there was an understanding of that. And that's why I'm taking that position. I understand the need for it. I just think that if that was the case, it should have been brought out a lot more during the discussion that we had each time when we did have discussion on the bonding. Now all of a sudden, it's up here, and now it's an emergency thing, we got this and that. I'm not buying it.
We have $20,000 set aside for the Arthur Street pump replacement. What, is that not critical? Is that as critical as the pump?
It is critical. Of course, each of those items are critical. Trying to go from memory now, I don't have it in front of me, but the fire hydrants are something that we try to keep 5 or 6 stocked and then replace those as we have the ability, or A lot of times they get hit by vehicles and stuff. And so we looked in the inventory, we've got 3 back there. We'll purchase 2 more, and that gave up some money. We also invested in a new cutter head for our rotting machine, and it is specifically designed to cut roots as opposed to the chemicals. So I believe that we can reduce, not just in the current budget, but in future budgets, our chemical additive. We add chemicals into the sanitary sewer lines that kills those roots. We've got a little bit better method for that. The bulk water filling station was something that we would like to do out in front of the garage. Right now, we've got a standpipe out there. There's been no control over when people are filling up or not, especially in evenings and weekends when we're not there. So now we've got that locked. We've also created keys and have a list of who's got keys. So if we've got a landscaper or something that is drawing water from that, they can access it, and then they give us monthly reports so that we can bill them appropriately. The Arthur Street pump station is, when the capacity study was done, when Joslyn Cove was built, that pumping station was right at the edge of its capacity. Since that time, the Oaks Prison has reduced their flows substantially, and so it has brought it back down below that capacity limit. What we were trying to do is put money into the budget and upgrade those pumps ahead of when potential development occurs in Manistee Township, where those flows come back up. So right now, the Meyer store is really the only new customer out there. This year, they're going to add about 5,000 gallons a day to the flow. So I think we can hang on to that for another year.
Mr. Cody also brought up another point too about liability. If we put our pump on the site on a big project we're doing, and we start doing our own pumping, where's our liability lie if that pump breaks down?
The same as all the other work that
The
we're
work
doing.
in the pump station is our liability regardless, but if it goes out on a contract, if they put it out with a contractor, we still have the liability on that.
And I just had a 2-second conversation with Mr. Bradford. If this is better to be purchased out of the motor pool this year, there's about 3 items that we found better solutions for and will not be purchasing. Off the top of my head, we had budgeted $8,000 to replace a dump box on one of our trucks, on our 1-ton truck. We've actually been able to purchase steel and weld it and repair it and put it back into condition ourselves. So that's money that's not coming out of the motor pool. We had budgeted, I believe, $5,000 for a dump trailer. We were anticipating when we took over the rest of the Republic Services contract to haul leaf bags, that we would need that equipment, but I found that we're just as efficient using the truck that we've got, and we're able to keep up with it and not be able to do it in the same time frames. So we had money, I think, and there was one other one. Do you remember what the third one was? There's 3 purchases that we anticipated, but we have found more efficient ways and cost-effective ways of dealing with, and so we could apply some of that money, and then as opposed to putting it into the next budget, there's an opportunity to do that today as well.
What you're telling me is that we have a way of doing both the Arthur Street, these other things, and buying this pump.
We could take some of the savings that I have not purchased in the motor pool this year, put it towards this purchase if it's appropriate, if you feel it's appropriate to come on our motor pool. If that happens, then the items on here, like the Arthur Street pumps, I will put back on the table. Some of the other money, instead of the specifically budgeted items that I had for it, we will put those back into some of the capital improvements this year. And it will help offset some of the additional costs that we've got incurred right now, actually.
I would say my apologies also. I don't recall that, honestly. I understand, I remember the conversation of the motor pool, but I don't recall that as specific. I think we have talked about this portable pump on multiple occasions. And I think from staff's perspective, we want to be clear with council how important of a piece of equipment we think this is. We have stated it on multiple occasions, and again, my apologies if if that was I just didn't hear it that way, but anyways, I just want to be clear from the staff's perspective that we think this is a very, very valuable piece of equipment and one that is going to be very valuable to our utility operation.
What's the reasoning by putting it in the motor pool?
Well, actually, I think for all that stuff, back when the motor pool was formed and all that, the initial pumps and all that were all underneath, and they're all numbered between the last supervisor, DPW supervisor, Mr. Bradford. There was a whole numbering system of all the parts, all the pumps and trucks and stuff like that, like I said, pumps, all stored down the garage, and it was all underneath the motor pool, and it was all numbered. When it got moved over to the wastewater plant, is when it was still considered part of the motor pool and maintenance, but we built the garage, and that's when it went over there. And the reason why I got moved over there is because every time it's in the motor pool, it got pushed off the back, and every time I had to use it, I had to go get it, the battery was this and everything else like that. So when the opportunity came, naturally, we took it and put it down to the sewage plant to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. We always said we're looking for parts for it, especially the battery. And that's all. So everything was logged, all the pumps and everything else was logged underneath the motor pool. That's where the thought of putting it underneath the motor pool and purchasing it. And to do the pump station, that's definitely the right way. I fully agree with that. I'm just disappointed. I thought it was understood that, yes, we'll go ahead and purchase it through the motor pool. That was my understanding, and that's my bet.
I understand.
From my recollection of that discussion, I do recall the motor pool discussion, I remember that vividly, and I recall that we were trying to reduce the amount of bond that we may take out against the proposed water and sewer rate program that we're going to have to balance that. And that discussion went around and around, and I felt at the end we were going to fully fund the bond as proposed by staff and include those items that we were trying to whittle away by other means. But again, I don't believe at the end of the discussion there was clear direction on any stance that it was going to come out of the motor pool or not come out of the motor pool. I still felt it was going to land in the bond issue because that's what it was initially proposed to by staff. And the only time the motor pool came up was by recommendation from council.
Basically from myself. I wasn't here for the last one. And the other reason why we didn't want it on there, because we didn't want to pay interest on a piece of equipment like that for 20 years, which was kind of foolish. You know, that's why you wanted to come out of the motor pool. Well, out of, for this discussion, for a different funding.
So would it,
That's what the subject was about.
so,
I'm not against buying it.
yeah.
You don't get them on.
So would we like to see it from, so two questions to council. Just, I'm going to be just. be
Well,
clear.
excuse me.
Yes?
Okay, you want, Jeffrey, Mr. McClure. Okay. The purpose for this pump is to address the two pumping stations, right?
This pump, the pump that is before you, is capable of running every lift station we have in the city.
I understand.
So if we have a communication failure, if we get a power failure, if a car runs into a panel and knocks it completely out, we can set this up next to that pump station. It's got a float system and it's got a panel that allow it to be programmed to operate as a standalone pump station. So regardless of what emergency happens on the 14 pump stations we have, this would handle it until we could get it repaired and replaced.
The problem with that little discussion there is you got alternate power. If the pump stations go down, both pumps normally don't go down, so lots of power. So you got generators there, on-site generators and also portable generators. So this is redundancy of that, is what that is.
Right, and, you know, we had, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago, we had a power outage on the north side of town.
Yep.
So, the Oaks Prison was able to keep functioning, and that's the only one. So we set up a generator at Arthur Street, kept that running, and then they were getting a second one to be able to run it around. This just adds another layer of protection for that. In addition, it also will pump around the headworks of the plant. So Instead of running a pump while we're doing maintenance that we do every year, this covers that. It also is a much more efficient pump when we have water main breaks. The pump that we have now, you know how hard it is once you break suction, and breaking suction is right when you're down and need to work on the pipe. So this is self-priming, it'll function in that place. And in speaking with the engineers, it will also be able to handle not every case of bypass pumping, but it'll handle bypass pumping sufficient so that we don't have to pay tens and twenties of thousands of dollars per project. So in my mind, it will pay for itself with the bond projects that we've got coming up, and provides a whole nother level of protection to the system.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned there is not really for it. You say it'll pay for it during other construction periods.
Right.
That means you're gonna contract that out, and then they're gonna use that pump for that. And that makes us liable there.
Well, I don't think contracting out, but we're either paying for that pump through the cost of the project, you're paying through it through the contract, or you're providing that level of service and saving those costs.
Yeah, we'll just
One
do
way or
it.
the other, you're paying for it one way or the other on every project.
What we're proposing is to do bypass pumping as a force account, as we're provided by the owner.
Right.
Is there anything we can do tonight besides just vote no against this, or can we change
Well, I
it?
guess-
We can vote yes, too.
Well, I guess, you know, the way I look at it is they have a budget to work within. They're staying within the budget. To me, they have a better understanding of their day-to-day needs and how the city works and what they need. And I feel more comfortable leaving it to them what projects they think is more important or less important.
I do not want to dictate that. That's not my goal. Now that I know that they want to address the 2 pump stations, I do have a change of.
Would council feel more comfortable if we primarily focused it out of the motor pool that Mr. McCool identified?
I would
And
be
then
much more-
augment it with some of the other smaller projects, leaving, I see Arthur Street, and I understand the importance of Arthur Street, leaving Arthur Street alone, but go through a process of looking at the existing motor pool, items that we are gonna purchase, primarily purchase it through that, and then with the augmentation of, whatever additional funds through the identified items here, would that be
I would
palatable
totally,
to council?
I would totally agree with that.
Okay?
I was of the understanding that it wasn't going to come from the bond money, and it wasn't going to be at the expense of other projects, that there was available funds from the motor pool to make the purchase. So, yeah,
I don't recall, and that,
Well,
I mean, if we budget
we
for
work
it
it
in
through
the
that
next
way.
fiscal year,
That's
it's more.
fine, fine, it's in this way, in my mind anyways. I mean, there's a different philosophy here maybe, but, yeah.
I have no problem, I just want to see Arthur Street, I think is very, very
So,
important.
When I saw that on there, I was, wow.
Is council, Susan,
I just feel if you're gonna buy something that wasn't originally budgeted for,
right?
you need to identify what's coming out, what's gonna be postponed, which you've already done. It's not gonna cost over in the budget. And personally, I believe that should be your discretion, what that should be. But from what I'm hearing, council is not against purchasing this pump. It's maybe a philosophy in how we fund.
I guess basically that's where I'm coming from. Well, initially, that's how the discussion started, so that's where, you know, I mean, that's where I raised the issue when it was initially
Okay.
brought up.
Almost like
And
it's
I thought it was kind of like,
So do you?
the food for thought was out there, and I thought it was done, yeah, we'll just write it in as part of that, and of course, with the budget, it would just be automatically okayed through the motor, you know, for the purchase that way. That was my, and I thought that was what was going on here, and plus we took it out because we didn't want to pay for the interest, you know, for 20 years interest
Right,
on that.
no, I agree.
And I thought, and I made it clear several times that, yeah, I'm for purchasing it, and especially if it went through the fund, I'm not against it. I'm just, especially when you throw $20,000 for Arthur Street pump replacement. So,
It
that
appears
just-
to me
that was just a sore spot right there, too.
It appears to me it was more of a communication, staff receiving the message that some council members were stating. I mean, I see that.
Arthur
And I
Street's
missed
still-
that, honestly, I missed it.
Arthur Street still bothers me, because.
Okay, well, then
That,
Arthur
I
Street,
mean, Arthur Street bothers me because I hear you say it's a critical thing.
It stays.
When are we gonna fix it, or what are we gonna do, what we gotta do, where's the money gonna come from, how long can we wait, that type of thing.
So can
Well,
we be safe to say that we're in agreement to purchasing this pump as long as it doesn't exceed what's already budgeted without sacrificing Arthur Street. How they do want fund it, whether it's through the motor pool or through these, not doing other projects. Because the motion on the table is just to approve, it doesn't say how we're going to do it.
Okay, so we'd like to see the majority of, leave Arthur Street, you know, do that money in there, that's important.
Does anybody have any other strong feelings on?
Again, I think I go back to what Mayor Kenny had said. I don't want to second guess these projects. Jeff has laid out a long list over the last several years of things that are in a critical state, and this has been on the list for several years. And I don't believe that department comes asking for equipment just because it's nice, pretty, and shiny. And I don't want to second guess those critical projects. I'm not in the field. I couldn't begin to walk in his shoes. So the funding was built into the bond, and I think that's where it should remain. And to ask him to squeeze out other projects and bump other things to different years or not doing them all, I don't think that's the right idea either. That's my opinion. It was built into the bond, and I think that's where it should remain, and it should be approved as such. But again, that's just my 2 cents.
Councilmember Gus said, as you might recall, it was the consensus of council to actually remove that from the bond proceeds. So originally it was built into the bond. We reduced the amount that we bonded for to take that portable pump out. Regarding whether it should be paid for from the motor pool or from the water and sewer fund, I think the motor pool has evolved over time. And Ed, you're correct, there was a list, and there is a list of projects, but there isn't any pumps on those. It has been used in the past.
Initially there were.
Originally, not since I've been doing it. There hasn't.
You're the one that numbered them all.
Yeah. So, but that's neither here nor there. I think the approach that Jeff is suggesting, which is there's a couple items that he's not going to buy out of the motor pool. We could use that amount of money to pay for part of the pump, and then he could move things around in his water and sewer fund budget to pay for the rest. Makes the most sense to me, and I think it meets the needs of what I've heard expressed here tonight. That'd be my suggestion.
We can easily then, if council desires, we can come back and specifically lay out what those items were in the motor pool, so you can see that specifically. That would be fine. I mean, it would be.
I'd like to see that.
So what we do would be, at this point in time, I'm assuming, and I have not had this conversation with Jeff yet, so would be a combination of probably a couple of items you see here on this memo, as well as the motor pool items, but we will identify all of those items and provide that to council.
But the only strong thing I heard was Arthur Street. You don't want to see that sacrificed. So that would be the only thing. I think direction going forward
The logic was to
is.
put that in there. That's happening. Why would you take money from one of our most critical pump stations? It handles the hospital and the illness. And as his own comment says, he's right at the borderline right now.
But the direction we're giving, if we approve this purchase, it cannot be at the sacrifice of that.
Absolutely.
That was correct.
We do that loud and clear.
Is there any more discussions or questions?
So we vote on this now?
Yeah, there's a motion to approve the purchase of the portable pump for $43.15. So that's what we're gonna be voting on. But the direction we're giving staff is, if this is approved tonight, it will not be at the expense of the Arthur Street.
Pump station replacement parts, you know.
And this is out of the motor pool.
Well, they're gonna look at a combination, probably motor pool or.
Combination of motor pool and some water and sewer funds.
Do we have to be specific, I'm sorry, on that terminology?
No.
I don't think you do. I'm just saying, we'll report back to you. It's been made large enough issue tonight that we will report back to you exactly where those funds are coming from for this particular. Normally, we wouldn't do that. You would pass the motion, and we would take forward, that clearly tonight, you would like to see that. I believe the majority would like to see specifically where those items are coming from. So we will submit that information to council.
Yeah, they're not gonna exceed our current budget to make this fit, and they're not going to compromise Arthur Street pump station replacement parts.
Correct.
Are the only two known things at this point.
Okay.
Is there any other questions or discussion? Can you please take the roll?
Councilmember Cody,
Yes.
Mayor Kenny,
Yes.
Councilmember Gustet,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitliff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed,
No.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next one, consideration of introducing ordinance 15-02, chapter 1420, building inspections. The former building inspector retired on August 29th, 2014. Administration reviewed options for providing building inspection services, which included hiring a full-time building inspector, contracting out building inspection services, or turning building inspections back over to the State Bureau of Construction Codes. Based upon the amount of revenue being generated through building inspection permits and the fact that no requests for proposals were received in December 2014 to contract out building inspection services, administration determined that the best option was to return building inspection services back to the State Bureau of Construction Codes. This ordinance has been reviewed and supported by the Council Ordinance Committee. As an ordinance, 2 separate readings are required. If this ordinance is introduced at this time, it could be adopted at the next regular meeting. Is there a motion to take action to introduce the ordinance?
I'll make a motion the council take action to introduce ordinance 15-02, repealing the chapter 1420, transferring responsibility for the administration and enforcement of the building inspection provisions to the State Bureau of Construction Codes.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gudstad, support by Councilmember Whitliff to introduce ordinance 15-02, repealing chapter 14. Is there any other discussion?
With this ordinance, would we be required to amend the ordinance again in the future if we opted to return to a building inspector?
I believe you would.
Any other comments, concerns? Seeing none, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Kenny,
Yes.
Councilmember Cody,
Yes.
Councilmember Zelinski,
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitliff,
Yes.
Councilmember Gustet.
Yes.
Motion approved, ma'am.
Thank you. Consideration of introducing ordinance 15-03, amendments to chapter 1482, residential rental properties. With the retirement of former city building inspector in August 2014, city administration explored options to continue this service. Based upon research, it was clear that contracting out rental inspections made the most financial sense. The ordinance amendments create a new definition of designated city official and allow greater flexibility for city personnel or contracted employees to perform rental inspections. This ordinance has been reviewed and supported by City Council Ordinance Committee. As an ordinance, 2 separate readings are required. This ordinance is introduced at this time. It could be adopted at the next regular meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion the council take action to introduce the ordinance 15-03, amending chapter 1482, allowing flexibility to contract out rental inspection services.
I'll support.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gudstad, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Smith, to take action to introduce ordinance 15-03. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Gustet,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitliff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed,
Yes.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cody,
Yes.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Motion approved, ma'am.
Thank you. Consideration of applications to boards and commissions. The city clerk has taken action to advertise vacancies on the Compensation Commission, Harbor Commission, Non-Motorized Transportation Committee, Parks and Beautification Commission, and the Pay Commission. All appointments by the mayor are subject to council's approval unless otherwise specified by statute or ordinance. Nominations for council appointments do not require a second. After a member of council nominates an individual for appointment, council shall vote on the nomination. A majority vote in favor of placement of the nominee is required for appointment. The following applications have been received. Compensation Commission, there were no applicants. Harbor Commission, there were no applicants. Non-Motorized Transportation Committee, there were no applicants. The Parks and Beautification Commission, there's 1 vacancy, term ending 6/30/17. Applicants must be a city resident, own real estate, businesses, professions in the city. This is a mayoral appointment. We had 1 applicant, Danielle of 251 7th Street, whom I'd like to appoint to the vacancy.
Is there a error in this? Is it Danielle or Daniel? Daniel.
Danielle.
Daniel, okay, because her dad's Daniel.
Nope,
All right.
Danielle.
All right, thank you.
Do we need a motion to support the mayoral appointment, is that?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to support the mayor's appointment of Danielle Wilcox of 251 7th Street.
I'll support.
I have a motion by Councilmember Gustas, supported by Councilmember Bisbee to appoint Danielle Wilcox. Is there any discussion? Yeah, please take the roll.
Mayor Kenny.
Yes.
Councilmember Cody.
Yes.
Councilmember Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Whitlow.
Yes.
Councilmember Gustas.
Yes.
Motion approved, Mayor.
Thank you. In the Pay Commission, there were no applicants. So you just go ahead and re-advertise. Next, we'll move on to notices, communications, and announcements. The regular part of each council meeting is a report from a cooperating agency, organization, or department. Tonight, we'll hear from Mr. Kenny Cott, who will report on activities of the Manistee Recreation Association.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me come here and present to you guys tonight. Put together a short presentation about the MRA that'll sum up 2014 and give a quick glimpse into the future of 2015 with the MRA. Feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. Let's get started here. In front of you, I have a list of the programs that we offered in 2014. A lot of the usual stuff. We have the core of our soccer programs, our baseball programs, including t-ball, machine pitch. We have a couple of tennis camps, Girls on the Run, lifeguard certifications, ski and snowboard co-op with Crystal Mountain, and our swim programs. These are all offered, like I said, last year. We plan on offering them all again this year. We have every intention of keeping everything we have going. We have great participation based with all of them. So, community involvement. The MRA has always had great community involvement, and 2014 was no exception. We had multiple organizations or businesses get involved with us, including the Kiwanis, Portage Lake Covenant Bible Camp, the Payne Aquatic Center, the United States Tennis Association, USTA, Crystal Mountain Resort, as I had mentioned. Just some of the few. We've had many more that have either come forth and helped out with programs or have given their time or money. We've had participation from 11 different townships and the city of Manistee. Our reach is growing. We have a lot of out-of-the-county areas we have had participation in. I believe there's all but 3 townships in Manistee County that we didn't have participation in last year. We're growing. Like I said, we're looking to increase that. I'm going around to a lot of the schools in the out-of-county areas, hoping we can get some of the kids to participate, as well as some of the older adult programs that I'll touch on here in a little bit. We had 124 volunteers last year in 2014. And that's up from 2013 by about 30 volunteers. So it's really good to see people still want to stay involved and keep active with what we do. The MRA, we survive on volunteers. Nearly all of the people that are involved with our programs are volunteers, donating their time or their money all the way across the board. So, one way that we try to recognize some of the volunteers that do help out with the community, not just the MRA, is the Charles Shadle Award. Every year the MRA board picks an individual and an organization that recognizes or that contributes significantly to the recreational quality of life in Manistee County. Last year, as you may recognize, the individual ended up being the Sheffield family. Former director Vicki Sheffield and her family were given that award. The organization that we chose was the TES Filer City Station Recycle Committee. The Sheffield family, they've been a part of MRA activities for over 18 years, either participating, volunteering, or coordinating. They're well deserving of the award for all the time that they have donated before, during, and I'm hoping after Vicki's time with the MRA. They're greatly involved in a lot of the programs that we did. We really appreciate all their help. The Filer City Station Recycle Committee. For those of you that don't know, it's basically it's a committee that works for the plant there. They take all of the recycled materials that they would normally get funds from and then distribute that back to their general fund. They take the recycled material funds, and they give it out to youth around Manistee County, either programs or organizations. It's really unique what they do, and it's really generous. It's something that we felt they needed to be recognized for. It's comprised of 3 main members, which are Rhonda Brown, Shelley Johnson, and Greg Sheffield. Unfortunately, the other 2 members of the committee could not be there to accept the award, which is why Greg Sheffield is the only one pictured. Some of the groups that they've contributed to, including but not limited to the MRA, Science Olympiad, Boys and Girls Scouts, Grad Bash, many area schools, like I said, many lists. I cut that down quite a bit. So if you see either the Sheffield family or anyone that's on the recycling committee around town, be sure to thank them for their great service to Manistee County. They do a great job. Here's a list of our sponsors that we had last year. These are just the sponsors that either contributed enough time or enough money to be included on our banner. We had many more that contributed, smaller amounts or here and there that didn't need to be included or didn't wish to be included. They just wanted to be part of the organization and help out any way that they could. We've already started to receive a lot of sponsorship forms back from many of these businesses already, and we're anticipating to have a few more by the end of the month. Different appropriations. We've received funding in 2014 from all of these governmental entities. It would not be possible to provide the opportunities that we do without the support from these local entities throughout the county, with the city of Manistee being at the forefront. The city provides nearly 1/3 of our total budget. It's crucial to what we do, and we greatly appreciate everything that is offered to us. Once again, it's our mission to provide recreation opportunities to all citizens of Manistee County. One way we're able to do this is by providing scholarships. Scholarships are available for those who may need assistance with registration fees. Last year, we provided 89 scholarships, totaling $3,196. So basically, if a family member comes in and says, hey, I'm having a hard time getting through this, but I really want my kid or my friend or my family member to participate in this program, we ask that they fill out a financial form, we review it, and then we will cover the fees for the program. So this is a way that we can give back, and we can take some of the funding from townships and from the city and really give back and make sure everyone can have a chance to participate in our programs. So it's really rewarding to have that and be able to offer this. So looking ahead to 2015, we're moving on in a new direction with a new director. I'm really excited to be here. I've already started to explore some new programs. I don't know if anyone's heard of pickleball. I personally hadn't before I came back to the area. I did a little bit of research. It's one of the fastest growing sports in the country. It's a mixture of ping pong, wiffle ball, ping pong, badminton, and tennis. So it's a smaller court, played with a wiffle ball and a paddle. It's pretty interesting. I recommend looking it up. I've already been in conversation with Manistee Township to use some of their facilities for we can possibly implement a league. Early stages with that, but we'll definitely keep everybody posted on how that's going. Soccer camp, we are offering another soccer camp already geared for 14 to 18-year-olds. We previously already had a British soccer camp, which is geared more for the younger age kids. It's a Tetra Brazil camp, which we're going to offer now, which is advanced skills, more for the high school aged kids. Youth baseball as well. I've already been in conversation briefly with the Little League program, possibly making that an MRA program instead of a Little League program. Very early stages, really nothing has come of that as of yet, but it's a staple point of Manistee County, especially for the youth to play baseball and softball in the area, and it would be nice to make that an MRA program. I've also established some new partnerships, new and old, I guess. We've worked with the Council on Aging before. I met with Sarah Howard to try and implement some new programming for the older adults and the seniors around Manistee County area. We focus a lot on the youth, but we need to get some of the adult programming as well. That's somewhere where I would like to see the MRA advance. There's a lot of older citizens in the area that still need recreational opportunities. I would like to see that happen. We're currently not a member of the Chamber of Commerce. We have been in the past. I also met with Stacy Byworth, the Chamber Director, and we will be a Chamber member this year. I feel like they're going forward with a lot of really good things, and I think there's a lot of things that we can partner with to make the community a better place as it is. Ramsdale Theater. Mike Terry, who runs a lot of the Ramsdale events there, he's the director over there. I met with him, or I talked with him on the phone. We're trying to establish a few things that maybe we can work together with. For example, there's a swing dance program that he wants to put together to kind of coincide with the Glenn Miller Band concert that's coming here in a few weeks. Trying to get an instructor for that, but as of right now, it's just kind of in the works. But it's neat to see that we can hopefully get involved with some other kind of different different activities than the MRA is used to. And currently, I'm the newest member of the Manistee JCs. I was sworn in last Thursday. I'm excited to be a part of it. It's a great organization that's been around for a long time. My grandma just informed me that she was a JC back in the day, back when there was the JCs and the JSETs, and it's been around, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm really looking forward to a good year with anything, or with everything with it. So, on that note, I'd like to thank you. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to field them now.
Now that we have a nice ice skating rink, any thoughts to offering ice skating lessons?
That's a great idea. I will definitely look into that. I can guarantee we'd have a lot of interest in that as well. I know we've hosted like a family fun skate day in the past year or two, and I know that was really well received. That's something personally, honestly, I haven't really looked at yet, but I will definitely look into that here in the near future. It's a great idea. So.
Just one additional thing that he was mentioning the TES recycling. We have recently, as both Roger and I know Councilman Zinsley, received a grant for the Teen Center. We used some additional funding from the TES Recycling Center. They provided some additional funding for the Teen Center down there also. So they've done really some very nice things.
We're really excited to have you on board and
Thank
a lot of your new and exciting ideas.
I'm happy to be here. So feel free to contact me with any questions or any other ideas that you guys may have. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have a presentation by the Alliance for Economic Success from Tamara Blushwinka and Betsy Evans.
Good evening. Glad to be back here again. My name is Tamara Blushwinka, the Community Development Director for the Alliance for Economic Success, and I'm joined here with Betsy Evans, our Business Development Director, and also in the audience is Beth McCarthy, our chairperson of our board, the AES board. She's the lady in red. So we're really happy to be here tonight to talk about talk about the Alliance for Economic Success and what we do to achieve greater economic prosperity for the city of Manistee, for Manistee County. We're going to talk about a number of things tonight. We're going to talk about how the AES has helped the city achieve success in many of their different areas of focus and achieve some of the strategic goals that you find in your strategic plan. Take questions, and we have future discussions planned, which I'm excited about. March 10th, we're going to be talking about your strategic plan at when we meet at the Ramsdell Theater, so I look forward to that. So that's all tonight. But basically, you know, what's neat about the conversation is we get to talk about the Alliance for Economic Success. That's our mission. So the AES its mission is to play a leadership role in assisting entrepreneurs, communities, and businesses, nonprofit organizations that wish to capitalize on the cultural and economic opportunities and natural assets. It was created in 2007 to support economic and community development in Manistee County. It's a 501c3 charitable nonprofit corporation, and it's governed by a board of directors. And so tonight, we get to talk about the AES 2015 work plan, how it relates to the City Council's work plan, and all the work that we've done over the last couple of years. And we're going to show how many of those things are very much interrelated, and so we're very excited to be here to do that.
All right, I just want to introduce the Alliance for Economic Success team, which is Tamara. As she said, she is the Director of Community Development, focusing on helping communities with their planning, zoning, and other tools to become development ready. I am the Director of Business Development, and of course that's the more traditional role of retaining, expanding, and growing businesses and jobs for the area. Tim Urban is our Resource Development Director, and he works with public and private organizations to secure funding and technical assistance for communities and for businesses in the region. And then Susan Horncole is our Office Manager. and truly keeps us all together, handles all the management, and she is all the reporting and the fiscal agent for a lot of the grants that are received. There also shows our board of directors. Beth McCarthy, as Tamara introduced, is the chair. James Barker with the West Shore Medical Center. Alan Marshall, Manistee County Commissioner. Kelly Smith, President of Baker College in Cadillac. Eric Bustad from the City Council, also Consumers Energy. The Manistee Manufacturers Council has an interesting situation in that they have a seat on the board, but there are 3 different folks that fill that at different times. So it's kind of an opportunity to get a few different perspectives, but still represent the Manistee Manufacturers Council. Bob Wangbickler is a retired business executive. Scott Howard, who is the acting president for West Shore Community College. Sarah Alden, a business owner in town who play clothes. Bert Parks from the West Shore Medical Center, former president. And we currently have a position available and have a commitment from the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians. But as of right now, that position is on.
So what do? We look at 3 different areas when we're talking about economic development within our county. We focus on business development, and all of that takes to make a business successful: expansion, retention, growth. Community development. We're looking at communities and how we can help communities achieve what they have identified that they want to achieve. So, really problem solve. Well, helping them identify what they want to do, and then helping them problem solve and seek resources to do what they want to do. And resource development is really looking for all the funds that go into making a lot of the things that have been identified happen. So really it's the financial aspect of it. And so we do all of that in concert. We do all of that together. The reason why it's one big yellow dot there instead of 3 different dots is because we're often working on the exact same problem at the exact same time, but from different directions. And when you have that more holistic and collaborative approach, you can find and achieve, you can find solutions and you can achieve greater successes that way, or so we found. So again, there's interrelated results. All of these results are happening because all of the consultants at AES are working on the problem at the exact same time, different approaches, and I think that over the past 8 years, some of the really truly great things have happened because you've had a lot of effort from a lot of different directions that go into those problems. So, we focus on action. We focus on results. We focus on making sure that projects are ready to go. And we do that through a process that may be unique to AES, I'm not quite sure, but basically we believe in listening to what communities want. So communities identify their needs. They communicate their priorities to us. And we help the community unify around that thought, that priority, and to develop a strategy to solve that or to achieve that priority. And then we always form leadership teams. So these leadership teams are made up of stakeholders, community members, business owners, whomever needs to sit at the table so that they can be a part of the solution. And that way you have a truly bottoms-up process. It's not us coming up with the solution and kind of top-down, shoving it down somebody's throat. It's really the community members themselves that are being a part of the solution. They identified the priority and now they're part of solving the solution. So again, they're unifying around the strategy. They developed the strategy, and there's action and there's results, and it's sustainable that way as well. The priorities, the actions that are achieved are long range, and they just don't disappear next year.
So that's a process we take in all our endeavors, but I want to take some time to identify the different partners that we work with. And a lot of these are not necessarily just funding partners, but partners that, again, are stakeholders in a process so that we can bring in to help facilitate the solution to a problem. So, again, a lot of them, West Shore, Baker College, Great Lakes Fishery Trust, Department of Ag, Little River Band, DNR, North Sky, are often brought in on a lot of different projects. and that's, again, funding, leadership development, permit coordination. The Alliance for Economic Success really serves as a connecting tool, a networking tool, and that's what we like to see, is that when people come to us, we can bring in all different types of partners to solve a problem. And then our resource development, these are a lot of our primary funders. The City of Manistee, Manistee County, but we also look to private foundations and state organizations. The Olson Foundation has been a huge supporter of a lot of our endeavors. The C.S. Mott Foundation, the Fry Foundation, Consumers Energy, and again, the USDA Rural Development, Great Lakes Fishery Trust, and the Little River Band.
So if I wouldn't mind, Betsy. So these slides, this partners and resource development, the really interesting thing about that is the relationships, that the time that it's taken to build these relationships. It's substantial. And so, there are folks from all of these different organizations that we call and that we know. And that is really an amazing thing for us to have at our disposal to help us tackle what we need to tackle. And again, that took time and effort, and it's really paid off in a lot of things that we've been successful at.
So that's sort of AES, what we are, who we are, and I'd like to go into sort of our work plan for 2015 and beyond. And I'd like to make the connection of how these align with the City of Manistee's strategic plan. So, in fact, a lot of these at the bottom of the slides, we've tried to identify the specific goal that these endeavors attempt to address. So, again, in my more traditional economic development role of business assistance, if businesses are welcome to come and utilize our services, and that can be consulting, it can just be, can you put me in connection with somebody? Who do I work with at the planning department? I've got an issue with zoning. So a lot of times, sometimes it's just a connecting thing. Sometimes it is one-on-one consulting and helping them, do some financial projections. But some specific, obviously large businesses we work with are Vogue Theater and the Bluefish downtown. And I, without violating any confidentiality, and I know that's a difficult thing. Currently, I have upwards of 26 clients that I'm working with. And 17 are interested in locating businesses within the city. They range from restaurants, retail, service industry. A lot of them are tourist-related industries relying on recreation of the area. And 7 of them in particular are looking at River Street. And so I know that is a strategic goal of yours to revitalize the downtown, and it's certainly an endeavor that we're working to fulfill. And I work with Patrick with the DDA and Stacy at the Chamber. And we're always working together when we get different business leads or ideas and collaborating to find out how can we best consult, connect, and support those businesses.
So from a planning perspective, oftentimes you can't necessarily take the most constructive first step unless you really know what you need to do, and that takes some time. And so some of the things that we've been working on last year and what we will be working in 2015 is a manufacturing strategy. And then also a port plan as well. And those kind of go hand in hand to really look at what we can do, what are our assets, how can we best leverage what we have, and how can we grow what we have. And so that undertaking is going to take us through the rest of the year and a little bit into next year as well. We facilitated the Harbor Commission strategy and are certainly willing to help to implement that strategy. We're looking at the US 31 corridor. We're actually doing that in partnership with the County Planning Department. Our US 31 corridor, the entire corridor that goes throughout the county, to really look at how that corridor, the retail mix, the land use, the appearance, many different factors to see how it can be leveraged in the best possible way. That is the view that people have as they go through the city, and it's really an important asset in and of itself. The Lakes to Land Initiative, perhaps you've heard about it. The communities that participated in it focused very heavily on economic development. the strategies that they have within their master plans. They're actively working on that. And some of the projects that they have been working on, we've listed here the M22 Heritage Route designation. That gets on a national, it's a state registry, and it attracts a lot of folks to come through the county to travel on that road, bringing obviously their business here.
And I think it is M22 all the way down to Empire, and now the hope is to connect it all the way down to US 31 here at Gateway to M22. So.
Right, that's part of a larger system. So regional trail system, that's part of the rec plan that we're doing with the county. Trails are really proving to be economic catalysts for communities. I probably don't need to tell you folks what snowmobilers bring to a community, what folks who are mountain biking bring to a community, or just road biking. They are finding that the link between the economic impact and prosperity is quite compelling. Food Innovation District, really looking at what kind of ag assets we have throughout the county and how we can build upon those. And blight removal strategy, many communities want to make sure that their community looks good. They look, their appearance is what they want it to be. So basically we're just continuing to work with these communities to identify their priorities, understand their challenges, and help them. And that fits with your strategic plan goals 1.2 and 1.3 to have that more specific economic development on a regional, countywide scale.
And if I could just go to a little bit to the manufacturing strategy, and again, like you said, the port plan will be a part of that, and it's quite an undertaking. But the hope is not necessarily to identify where are the vacant properties, what types of businesses do we want, what types of small and medium manufacturing are we looking to invite to Manistee County, but we actually want it to be something that is shovel-ready, development-ready, so if someone does come to the city or the county and they're looking to locate, we've streamlined the process and are ready to go. And we also have something, a compelling document to take out to manufacturers that we do want to seek and say, this is the type of business we want in our community, and actively recruit to try to get manufacturing here. So when we talk about the shovel ready, we're really addressing not just a nice plan that's going to look good and we've identified the vacant properties, but it's a real tool to then go out and start filling those spaces.
Yeah, oftentimes we get alerts from the MEDC on projects that want to be located in certain places, and it's always a little frustrating for us because we're like, oof, we're not ready for that. We need to be ready. We cannot let one opportunity pass us by, and this strategy will help us capture those.
And then we also work on workforce development, which again, I know aligns with your strategic goal of 1.4. We're involved with Launch Manistee, which has actually 3 action teams. They're focused on cradle to career. So they have 3 action teams, which are preschool, they have the high school and increasing the high school graduation rates, and then they have the post-secondary focus, where they're looking to have employable positions, not necessarily 4-year degrees, but focusing on a career for the citizens of Manistee County. So AES is involved. We sit on the overall Launch Manistee board, but also we're involved in the action committee, particularly focused on the post-secondary. So we're right now undertaking an endeavor, working with West Shore, working with Baker College and the ISD, talking about what programs are they currently offering. We're working with Manistee businesses to find out what skills are they needing, identifying these gaps, and then actually coming up with some programs to fill those skill gaps so we can have real living wage jobs and careers and employment improvement in Manistee County. We also are working internship and externship programs. I don't know why they call them externship programs from the Culinary Institute, but they do. Right now we have 5 interns from Michigan State that are helping the planning department in Tamara working on the recreation plan. And so that's an internship association that Tamara actually wrote up, and the students are getting credit. So it's a great win-win situation for MSU and for Manistee. Also, Baker College, particularly, they have a great culinary institute, and they are interested in utilizing what they call an externship program with the Portage Point Inn, and also talking with Brandon Singh and the community kitchen. So trying to get them so we can utilize them. Again, win-win situation for everybody. The infrastructure and facilities of the city of Manistee, particularly the Ramsdale Theater. We're working with the governing body, the city, and us to develop a sustainable and viable business model for the Ramsdale Theater. So right now, we are seeking funding to help with that feasibility study and going forward, but actually coming up with a plan that it can become, again, sustainable and not just a city subsidy. We're also looking at the 9th Street boat launch and upgrading that facility. Right now we have different concepts for those site improvements, potentially an Explore the Shores site. And then, of course, you're working with Tamara on updating the strategic plan, and I think that's been done annually every year since 2007.
So another area of focus, city beaches, parks and recreation areas. Recently, we helped secure $300,000 and $75,000 respectively for the First Street Beach and the fish cleaning station. So those grants were used to finalize both of those projects. We just helped secure the city a grant for $48,000 for signage at the children's play area. And we've been working really actually very fast and furious on a newer initiative to improve the access to the M55, a non-motorized trail area. So we're still waiting on some estimates for that, but that is actually just the last couple of months that we've been working on that. So basically to provide greater access to that trail system. And so that fits with the Manistee Strategic Plan Goal 3.1. So, you know, one of your goals also is or areas of focus is intergovernmental relationships. And we do that all the time. The Lakes to Land Regional Initiative, that was 16 different communities that we were forming relationships with, and the city of Manistee was part of the Lakes to Land. We, through that initiative, we helped run the input session for your input survey. It was a survey for your master plan. The port strategy is going to involve many different municipalities, manufacturing strategy again, multiple communities. The countywide recreation plan, you know, that's the entire county, including the city. Neighboring counties, that's another part of one of your goals, is to look at areas where we can partner with counties where it made sense. The port strategy, we'll be looking at other counties, and also just in general shared services. So again, when you're looking at intergovernmental relationships, you're always looking for economies of scale. Where can we be efficient in our resources? And so again, that fits with your your strategic goal 5.1. And more recently, I believe this is your last area of focus, housing, homelessness, and senior citizens. And just within the last couple of months, it's been really exciting. We've partnered with Networks Northwest, which used to be the Council of Governments, and to develop a scope of work to build on some work that they had done. They had done a target market analysis for the city of Manistee and Manistee County in general. And we're developing the outline for how we're going to address housing in the city and in the county. And it's going to be a two-phase project. Basically, we're going to build on the work that's already been done, the target market analysis. We're going to develop a leadership team. And then the second phase is really exciting because, similar to the manufacturing strategy, this is going to actually help developers know exactly where and what types of housing to develop in the city and in the county, kind of like a developer's blueprint, basically, on where to go. Very compelling. Developers look for this. They become interested in places when you have the phase 2 piece in hand. And so again, that's just within the last couple of months that we've been embarking on that journey. But that meets your goal 6.1, talking about housing.
So just a real quick snapshot on some of the resource development, which really is Tim's strength, and some of the funds that we've been able to bring in to the city, different projects. For example, the North Channel Corridor, $23,500. The Vogue, the feasibility studies, there was $40,000. Of course, the restoration was over $1.2 million. $10,000 for the community kitchen. Explore the Shores has been quite a source for different projects here within the city. The fish cleaning station and really building on those recreational areas. So just to give a sort of a snapshot of some different resources that we brought in for different projects within the city. And then just to, sort of an overall piece, and these are, if we look at all the grant funding, we don't even talk about economic development, or we don't have those metrics to quantify how many dollars are being spent because we have a fish cleaning station at this time. But what we can look at is just pure grant money received that have gone toward different projects. And when we kind of break it out to different projects that take place within the city, and the projects that take place outside in the county, and a lot of them obviously cross paths. There's a lot that fall into both categories. But that's sort of a breakdown of, since 2008, the grants that we've received. 41% of the total is going toward projects within the city, and then 59% to the greater county area. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions, see if you have further questions about what AES is, or what we do, or what you would like to see us doing that you see is missing.
I think it was a great presentation. It really helps put in perspective what you're doing and how you're assisting the city. And I appreciated the presentation you put together, especially gearing it towards our strategic plan and things that you're working on. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Would you just entertain me to talk about the strategic plan for 1 second?
Sure.
I know we're going to talk on the 10th, and I just want to make sure that you guys got all of the survey results that we collected last week. Do you mind if I give you the paper versions? I gave them digitally, but if I printed them all out, we conducted the survey, we collected the survey results, I analyzed the survey, I summarized it for you, so you can have all of that in your brain when we meet on the 10th. So I'll see you then. Thank you. A little late meeting. Before you leave out. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll move on to concerns and comments. Citizen comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Citizens in attendance shall be recognized by the mayor for comments, which are limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Is there anyone who'd like to comment?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Jeremy Novak, 383 11th Street. I was also on the ad hoc street committee. Why is this in here? I hope the city council understands this was not on what we signed. Okay?
And can you refer to what that is?
It's the signatory statement by Mayor Kenny. When we signed this, it was not on. There's a signature page, okay?
And what would you, I'd be more than happy to explain it to council why I didn't sign it. Yes, I was on that committee. Yes, I had to miss several meetings because of work-related issues that I could not make the meeting. You knew ahead of time that I did not agree with some of the funding mechanisms that the committee came up with. and not holding up that document, you wanted that to council. Did not want to be held up anymore. I didn't want to hold it up anymore, and instead of taking it back to the committee, because I would never sign a document that I didn't believe in. I believed in most of the comments and most of the funding mechanisms, but I was not going to sign something that said 100% of the committee was supporting certain funding mechanisms.
It was a simple idea. We sat there for 7, 8 months, was it, Mitch?
Close.
And we talked about this stuff. And if you don't agree with any of the 3 key areas that we proposed to come up with funding, then what is your idea? Where are you gonna get money to work on streets?
I said I agreed with the general idea that there was a multifaceted way to fund the streets. I just did not, part of those statements in there said that 100% of the committee was on board with 2 of the statements, and I was not going to sign that because the committee knew I was not in favor of that funding.
I just think it was kind of underhanded that you were the last one to sign February 3rd. And then this letter was put in. Thank you for the apology, by the way, Mitch. I appreciate it. You know, we as volunteers, myself, Linda Beaton, Joel Banksy, the rest of the people, as citizens, agreed to do this to come up with an idea on how to fund city streets. Because there is no idea. There is no plan for city streets. There's nothing. And we sat there for 8 months and went through this stuff, and then you don't agree with 2% of the general fund contribution, increasing the oil and gas spending rule, nothing. So one thing I would like from you is to explain to the citizens of Manistee where you're going to find money to work on the streets. That's all I have.
Is there anyone else? So now we'll move on to officials and staff.
I'm sorry, I'm short.
Oh, I didn't see you back there.
Hi, Ed Simmons. My address is 448 East Scott Road. My business address is 200 River Street. I have been in front of council. I have been to the planning zoning. Planning zoning has sent it to council for justification or approval of changing the zoning down through the Peninsula District. Last September, I was told that I would have answers. I know you went to executive session. I know I can't ask about it, but I guess I'm asking for answers on how this is going to be handled and what we're doing. I'm sitting here with spring around the corner, with the chance to create jobs, up to about 58 jobs total when you put everybody involved in it. And I guess I'm asking what the council would like to do or how it's going to proceed from here.
Just to jump in real quick, this item will be on for council discussion and direction on next council meeting, which will be the March 17th.
March 17th or March 10th at the work session?
Not on the work session, because no decision can be made at the work session. We have discussed it in multiple work sessions. I was planning on putting it on the 17th for council direction. That follows up with everything we've been talking about.
All right.
So, March 17th.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Next, we move on to officials and staff. City manager.
Thank you. I just scratched one off the list, the peninsula. Got a couple of quick things for council. Next Tuesday, the 10th, the work session, we're actually going to be holding that at the Ramsdale Theater. Just a quick heads up, we'll do it electronically to you and let you know that. We're going to be discussing the Ramsdale. We just thought it would be appropriate to actually meet over there at the Ramsdale. We're not sure if it's going to be in Hardy Hall or in Ballroom right now, but one of those 2 rooms most likely. But just giving you a quick heads up, we're going to be at the Ramsdale Theater next Tuesday, the 10th.
Same time?
Sorry?
Same time, 7 o'clock?
Yes. Water freeze-up's not gonna talk much about that, because Mr. McCool is gonna talk about that. I'm sure you all want an update on the water freeze-up issues, if Jeff is here tonight to do that. Two quick things that we are currently working on right now is, we are working to open the marina up for individuals and families that may need to take showers and various things of that nature. We spoke to the people who have been without water for a certain amount of time. We're planning on opening up the marina to come in and take showers. Haven't figured out the time of that right now. We're working through all of those particular issues. Spoke to the facility director, and he said that facility should be able to be open and operated. We've got to get it plowed and safe for folks to get down there. So we're working on that, number one. And number two, we ordered a couple of pallets of potable water. It's pretty inexpensive. Jugged water that we're going to be making available for some of the residents if they need drinking water and various things of that nature, just to help them get through this interim process. That water will not be available until Friday. Ordered it today. Water will be available on Friday to help folks out. We'll have some at the DPW. We'll have some at City Hall. And if residents stop in, we'll be happy to help them grab a couple of gallons of water. We're going to put it in 1 gallon jugs to try and help them through this process. Secondly, or thirdly, on your desk, you have the letter that was drafted and sent out to Fowler Charter Township Supervisor Terry Walker. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to ask me any questions. This was discussed among the council utility committee, I think last Thursday. We discussed this particular topic. And finally, Mayor, as you know, we have applications out for the city assessor position. As of today, or actually yesterday, we received 2 applications so far. We haven't received any today that I saw, but we have 2 applications currently in for the city assessor. And again, I'll be working closely with the council personnel committee on filling that particular role. You'll remember that that is a council appointment, so ultimately it'll be a decision of city council to who's the right person and how do we move forward with that. Thank you, Mayor.
City Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Planning and Zoning? Public Safety Director?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Finance Director?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
City Engineer?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
DPW Director?
Of course, Your Honor. Well, I wanted to give you an update of what we've been, how we've been handling this water freeze-up situation since last week. Last year is the first year in the history that the city has had to run water. So, but we do have employees that have worked in that department for 35 to 40 years. And so we do have some basic knowledge and history of what's been happening. Throughout this winter, as we did last winter, we were tracking freeze-ups as they were coming in. We were looking at the ground temperatures at the road weather information system out by the bungalow. We were looking at the nature of the freeze-ups. There's always some that are on the annual run water list that maybe forget to turn on or leave the faucet on or turn it off by accident, something like that. There's a lot of vacants that freeze up, and when people come to town, notice that they're frozen. We were noticing that there's quite a few services that are directly under driveways and crawl spaces. So up until last Wednesday, the pace and the nature of the freeze-ups and our ability to thaw them pretty quickly with the welding company is reported to me as pretty typical for past winters, with last winter itself being an exception. Overnight, that changed dramatically. Overnight, there was probably 30 different services that got called into the fire station, left on the Public Works phone, and then kept coming in all morning long. The only physical thing that I can see that changed is the temps in the 4 to 6 foot range dropped by 1/2 degree. Normally they're fluctuating 0.1, 1/10 of a degree up, 1/10 of a degree down. That morning it dropped about 1/2 degree. Just based on the sheer volume that came in all at once. And when I talk about these numbers, they will never be absolutes, because depending on where they came in, when they came in, how they got logged, it may have been 28 one day and 10 the next, or 30 one day and 8 the next. But we decided very quickly that with the backlog that we already had and the amount that came in all at once, that we needed to start to run water immediately. Since that run water was issued Friday afternoon, we've probably been bringing in between 6 and 12 a day. Today's been the best day. We only had a few that were added to the list, but they've been freezing on a daily basis. We had been using two welders up until last Friday. Last Friday we called to have a third welder brought in. So we had a crew, one of our crews that were out clearing out snowbanks and curb stops, getting access, getting those prepped. And then we had 3 crews that sat with the welders. And then we had a separate crew that was on the jet de-icer, if you remember we made that emergency purchase last year. Where we can find candidates for that to work, we've been able to thaw services in about an hour. But the candidates have to have a pipe that's large enough and straight enough for us to put that small PEX line in from the basement. So what the water department has been doing is calling down that list as they come in, making sure that they understand that we have their information, that we've got them on a list. But the first thing we do is check to see if that jet de-icer is a possibility. And so Bruce has been running to every house, checking their plumbing. Where it's a candidate, we try to thaw it right away, and we were being pretty successful. We were on a pace of clearing about 3 of those a day through the weekend. Friday and Saturday, and even into Sunday morning, we stopped getting effectiveness from the welders. We had welders sitting on homes for 12 hours without thawing their services. Earlier in the season, 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. Maybe some would take a little bit longer than that, but they were thawing very quickly. So Friday and Saturday they were not thawing, and that list was continuing to grow. So Sunday we decided to change course. We actually decided, instead of thawing with the welders the services that were out there the longest, we started thawing the ones that were coming in immediately, and we were able to have good success from them. So the thought was that the oldest ones were froze for a longer stretch. The new ones that were coming in, we were hoping that there was a smaller piece that was froze, and the welders were being more successful on that. To support that change in direction, we also have contracted with 3 local excavating companies that all have the same type of system as the jet de-icer we do, but they've got portable units and portable heating units that they bring around in their trucks. So what we're doing now is all 3 of them, Forbes Excavating, Carl's Excavating, and Swarovski Excavating. And if there's any other companies out there that have this ability, give me a call and we'll put you on some services. But they are digging up the service lines at the curb stop, so they're accessing the pipe out in the brow or behind just off the street line, and then they're able to run that PEX line in to thaw them in that direction. So we've got up to three welders running every day, up to 3 excavating crews, which we should be at full speed with the excavators tomorrow. We also are doing the de-icing machine that we have, catching up as much as we can, and then we've got a crew that's going around prepping as much of the holes for those contractors as possible, so that it takes them the least amount of time and they're moving through these when they can. What we're also finding is that a lot of the old galvanized services, once they're freezing, they're getting very weak. We had one split yesterday, we had one split today. Especially in areas where there's clay. The clay is so hard at the surface and down 3-4 feet that digging those has taken a tremendous amount of effort and time. So we have been, we've had crews working 15 out of the last 16 days. They're generally working not every guy in the DPW is working the full hours, but the crews that are out working on the water lines are working 12-hour days. We're trying to rotate people in there to keep them fresh and make sure that people have breaks. We don't want anybody getting hurt. We've kind of created a parts warehouse so that we've gone to one of our suppliers, and I've made a deal with them that They have stocked us with a huge amount of all of our parts for the water system, and all the contractors that are under our hire have the access to use those. We'll pay for what we use. The contracting or the supply company will take back what we don't. We'll get credits for those. So just trying to make everything as efficient as possible. Like I said, the city's never ran water before until last year. It created an expectation this year that people were wondering when was it going to happen. But there's so many factors that are involved in deciding to run water. And you have to understand, and I'll explain this in a minute, that running water isn't a solution to frost in the ground and to freezing water lines. It is one of the tools that we have for prevention, but it doesn't fix it. Excuse me. Normally this time of year, we pump about 700 to 800,000 gallons of water a day. So when we were in the advisory stage and trying to warn people, if you have a pipe that might be under a paved area or where it's cleared of snow and there's not insulation, or if you have it running through a crawl space, you may want to consider running water as a preventive maintenance, and I know a lot of people have. The flows at that point increased in the system up to 1 million gallons a day. So we increased the flows from 700,000 to 1 million gallons a day. That's about 25% of the customers, 20 to 25% of the customers that took it upon themselves and took that advisory. Since we initiated the mandatory run water citywide, the pumping flows have gone up to 1.2 million. So we've got about another 10% of the customer base, and that's based on some rough calculations, because when you open up your faucet, you never know exactly how much is going through it, but I've worked with the engineers to kind of look at some rough ideas. But we've added about 200,000 gallons, or about another 10% of the customer base that has been protected since we ran the water. Last year, when we did this citywide and we went back and adjusted everybody's bills, we found that almost 70% of the accounts didn't have to be adjusted. People did not run their water. 30% of them, about a third of our customers, actually did run the water and were protected by that. So it's not a solution. It's not the final solution. It's part of the process that we've got to look at. One of the major, once we ran the water last year, we also know that it cost us about $40,000 in additional electricity and chemicals to not only pump it out of the ground, but now it's in the system. We've got to pump it from pump station to pump station. We've got to treat it at the treatment plant. We go through chemicals and electricity there as well. The other thing that happened last year, and this is a huge, huge concern of mine right now, we started to flood out that treatment plant because so much water was coming into the system. The timing of it created a combined sewer overflow where we had to restrict flows at that plant at 1.6 million gallons per day, and the rest of it got discharged as a CSO in combination with the normal runoff in the spring. I didn't look it up. I believe Jody told me we had 17 days of a CSO that we had run last year. Ed, you can explain this better than I can, but there's a lot of treatment parameters that are based on percentage of removal. When you dilute the sewage stream by 100%, it is extremely hard to meet the requirements of the sewage removal. I believe the solids and there's one other particular.
It's the bugs and your BODs plus amount of oxygen and the amount of food coming in to the relationship to the bugs. And yeah.
So that's.
But you're gonna have to generate more bacteria.
Right. It puts the plant is designed is rated at 1.3, and it can run at 1.6 for sustained time. But we put it under its paces last year when we ran it for 3 months, and so it was a concern of mine to run it again that hard. We were able to squeak by on some of our treatment parameters with the state by 0.1%. So we were extremely close to failing our discharge limitations last winter or last spring, and so I had those same concerns now. Right now, normally the treatment plant sees flows of around 700,000 to 800,000 gallons, very similar to what we're pumping water this time of year. Right now, we are at the low point. We're at about 1 million gallons a day, and we're going up to the 1.6 million gallons a day. We also know, that we've got I&I in the system, so as soon as we start getting melting streets, melting snow, rain, we're gonna increase that, we're gonna trigger a CSO. We contacted the DEQ about this last year and said, well, we have CSOs, they're very continuous, and we're discharging a lot of water, but we also have a run water, so how does the department look at that? And they said, you have discharge parameters, you are permitted, and you've made a choice to run water, and so you're gonna have to deal with the consequences of that. Fortunately, we didn't have to deal with anything last year, so we're gonna be looking at things closely, but it's a huge factor on turning on all the faucets. So the other thing that's going on right now is we, kind of along with the I&I study, we've got a $60,000 flow monitoring study that's in place, it's deployed in our system right now. We've got 12 meters going everywhere. So when we're trying to get a 10-month profile of the sewage flows in dry weather, which is supposed to be now through the winter time, and then also during the wet weather, we're trying to pinpoint where water's getting into the system that it can't. When you turn on 25, 30, 40% of the water system, I don't know that it's spread equally on all parts of the system, so I'm very concerned that the results of that study or the run water is going to tamper with the results of that study and could delay the results of that out another year or another several months. So there's just a lot of factors that go into this. The guys are working extremely hard. The customers that are without water are going through a real hardship right now. We're dealing with it the best that we can. Mother Nature set the frost in the ground. I can't wait for her to bring it back out. So should we have called it earlier or even waited longer? I don't know the right answer to that. I can tell you that we're taking all the available data. We're trying to make the best decisions we can and dealing with it day by day.
One question. Any private sewers freeze?
We have.
I've rented it out once.
We have had one of the contractors that I hired could not get here till tomorrow because they were clearing frozen sewers.
That's ugly.
Septic tanks, sewers, you have to go, a lot of septic tanks, they said.
Oh, really? I mean, city sewers.
Vents are freezing. We've had laterals freezing in town. People are like, hey, I turned the water on, but the drain's plugged.
Right.
And so if you've got a slow trickle, if you were trickling water and you had a shallow service, it will build ice. Forbes does have, one thing that we did is we bought chemical brine to pre-wet our salt. And we gave that to one of the customers that had a frozen lateral, dumped it in the sink. They haven't called us back. I'm assuming that worked. I've offered it to a couple other people. Forbes, I know, also has a different technique where they're actually jetting steam down in the lines.
Yeah,
those as well.
We recommended that.
Yep.
But that's tricky too. It all depends on how it's frozen.
So we made some pretty good progress today. We should have the other two contractors. They've got the mistakes in. They've got their snow moved. We've prepped a few of the holes for them. So, just as I was walking out of my office to come to City Hall tonight, I was able to scratch off 3 more. So we still have quite a few people without water, and we just keep rolling down that list trying to clear them. And so as soon as the contractors clear them, we're prepping the information on where the curb stop is. If we can get there and clear snow out of the way, if we can dig the hole for them, anything that we can do, we're working on it.
What is the total amount of freeze-ups that we have, Jeff?
For the entire winter or currently?
Currently, right now.
Currently, there are about 64 that will be thawed, that we believe we can thaw. There's 11 that are on the run water list. So that is, once you're familiar with the city policy, that when you're on the run water list and if you freeze, then it is your responsibility to get it thawed. There's instances where, like if our jet de-icer, I just was talking with Mr. Smith about one. There's somebody that's on the run water list. They've actually froze twice this year. The first time they thawed very quickly with a welder, but now they've been sitting. I think it's a candidate for our de-icer. We're going to go first thing in the morning and try to get those cleared out. We also have about 9 vacant properties where people have said, you know, let them sit by me if you can, but if not, I'll wait till spring.
The interesting thing this year is that Councilmember Cody called me the other day. A lot of times, and I'm not saying anyone's being falsifying information, so please don't think I am, but a lot of times when you're on the wrong water list, someone will accidentally turn off the faucet and things of that nature, which will lead to a freeze-up. We're getting a lot of calls this year with folks who are saying water was running and it still froze. You had several of those.
I had one person
You had
call me.
one, just one.
48 years they lived there, and that's a lot of weather, they never had a problem.
It just feels different. It just feels that particular
Yeah.
segment
Get that,
honestly
another
feels
problem.
different than it has in previous years. And I think we have to look at that a little bit differently than we have in previous years.
Yeah, a lot of times people are running it and they just walk by it, shut it off, they're brushing their teeth, they shut it off. Ed Bradford was making coffee, shut it off. You know, it just, that happens. We're not here to say whether or not what they're telling us is truthful or not. We're just trying to get them cleared as best we can. One other point that I think is really important. Last year, and again, it was the first year, so we all went through this together for the first time. But last year, we told the public that they were required to run water. And council decided that there should be a grace period. And after that grace period, if you froze, it was your cost and your responsibility. Now, there was a lot of people that got a lot of big bills because of freezing after we told them to run water. And that's another concern of mine. Right now, if I can bond with the resources we have, those costs are spread across the system, almost like an insurance plan. But once we issue the run water, we gave tomorrow as the end of that grace period. So if you freeze after that because you're not running water, and council stays consistent with what it did last year, it places that financial burden on the homeowner, which can be substantial.
I have a question.
Sure.
We're running water, assume like we did last year, Pencil.
Yep.
Pencil stream. So the ground temperature is much colder. Is that Pencil stream enough?
I'm not a scientist.
I guess what makes...
What I would tell you is this. At this point, the industry standard is a pencil lead of water. If you see that pencil lead decreasing, I had somebody call today and said, I think it got a little bit smaller. I said, turn it up. When the pipes freeze, they freeze from the outside and they create a collar, and the collar comes in. So if it starts getting restricted, turn it up. If you see any kind of rusty water, with the exception of Sunday when we had the fire and we were drawing water from everywhere, if you see rusty water, it's a sign that that ice collar started to set, and then when you use some water, took a shower, did laundry, whatever, it slid in the pipe and it disrupted some of the mineral buildup on the inside of that pipe. And so that rusty water coming out is a sign that you're getting ice buildup in there. We've had quite a few people calling with that also.
The reason that I asked that is I got curious today, went online, 9 to 10 found some cities that actually had run water notices, and I just started calling around. It's amazing how differently we handle things. But a few of the cities have asked people to run in 2 places in their houses because of that colder temperature. They're actually asking them to run more. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
That if we're still having freeze-ups every day, are we doing everything we can, or should we be running more water?
From the water side, I can tell you that the wells and the tanks can handle it. From the treatment side, we'll have to discharge that over the overflow. It's a balance, and you know, this is unprecedented. I don't know all the answers to it.
Are the number of freezes higher this year than they were last year, Jeff?
We have about 112 total this year. Last year, I think we were about 145, 148 in that range.
One question. Are you noticing galvanized or copper lines freezing more? Or is it a mixed bag and it has to do more with the depth?
That's hard to answer it because
I know,
if they're copper,
well,
when I look, I'm trying to picture the board that we have them all written on right now. And when I picture them, the copper ones have that opportunity for us to use the de-icer, so they're taking off a little bit faster.
Okay.
It's really, and it's not one spot of town, they're spotted everywhere. everywhere through the city. At one point, I was gonna start, in fact, I will do this, is take it on GIS, and I wanna plot them out to see if there are cluster areas, like, I believe that the peninsula area, you know, we've had a lot of freeze-ups down there. We have a brand-new water main, we have brand-new water services, they were all buried to the proper industry standards, but I think because that peninsula is a peninsula, there's not enough water that's circulating through the water mains, and that water gets colder or something, because there's just too many of them there. So, you know, we'll analyze that data and then make some moves proactively for next year. And then I think it's gonna be worthwhile for us to look at the council policy, the policy on the water freeze-ups, and maybe make some adjustments on that, because it is hard to stand with that policy when somebody's line is frozen and there's, you know, and there's money involved.
You know, you may have something here, if you can pinpoint where a lot of it is, it might be high points or whatever, maybe instead of people run their water, it might be more people.
Right.
A hydrant, you know, something that you can.
Right.
But if kind on and you can control, because the movement of water is what you want, because it's warmer water than what's on the outside.
Yeah,
That's
we
much,
also-
much more economical and everything for everybody.
We also,
It's not a bad thought.
we've also identified where there's, from last year, from having, when we issued the run water last year, we had water mains breaking, we had water mains freezing. It was a danger to the distribution system. This was the services just all in one clump coming at us, so. But last year, we found some areas in the system where we have dead ends because of broken valves in the closed position. So we've been proactively flushing those lines every 2 to 3 days to make sure we've got fresh water coming through there. And if there's any ice formations, that we're melting those out as well.
Yeah, and if you're experiencing colder,
We're
so
still,
not putting you on the spot, but if you're experiencing colder water, I think that may be coming from your tanks. I've always, my biggest fear when I was there was freezing the tank.
Yeah.
Making a popsicle.
I did a little bit of research, based on your question from the council utility meeting last Thursday. The way that the water operators are dealing with those tanks is they're changing the set points every day. So one tank is fluctuating at a higher level for a day or two, and then they fluctuate it at a lower level to make sure that there's no formation of those ice collars. And so we're bouncing them back and forth. Running all this water in the wintertime, we had well 10 go down. Consumers was excellent in getting there quickly. But in the process, we had to shift how we were putting water into the system. That shift then caused a failure of a sensor in the Maywood Tower, or in the industrial tower. So the cold is just tough on everything right now.
Have you increased your flowing, flowing water freezes, doesn't freeze the fans?
I can't answer that, I don't know.
Okay, good. A little bit more on what hurt.
I mean, all the strategies you're coming up with are still good, but if people aren't heeding the run water notice, all the strategies in the world aren't gonna fix the lack of attention to that run water notice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a,
It's hard to understand, it's hard to even get my head around this, but it is not like flipping a switch. Everybody's protected.
no, I know.
It is a tool that we deploy when we feel it's necessary to deploy it, and then we've got to have people help us out.
Yeah.
And then we've got to do our best that, as that tool is being implemented, it's not causing violations at the treatment plant as well.
One of the things that we're gonna do is after we get through this triage, I think triage probably is the best word for it. Once we get through this, not waiting into the summer, because then we're gonna get busy with summer construction projects and various things like that. But we need to sit down and look at this comprehensively. What's occurred over the last 2 years? Bring in all of the staff members that have been involved with this, from myself and Jeff, to Heather Peffley, to Kathy Boyle, and just really have a comprehensive discussion about what's working and what's not working. Where are we seeing these issues occur? What do we need to change? Look at the policy, bring those policies back to council for council review. We really look at this systematically. For example, we've got multiple people saying, gee whiz, I never got the door hanger. I never got notified of the run water. We have a list that shows a marking of every single home where that door hanger was put. Well, we're gonna solve that problem next year by a certified letter. Does it cost a little bit more money? It does, but it just takes away that, well, I didn't see the door hanger type of a scenario. So there are certain things that we think we can do But we need to do that when it's 60 out, rather than negative 18 out, and the emergency's passed, we've gotten through that emergency, and then we can have a comprehensive discussion about how do we handle this in the future if these events come up in the future. So we are already planning on that particular discussion.
Yeah, just like Councilman Zelinski was saying, how he's looked at different communities and stuff, we've been doing the same thing. We go home at night, we're looking on websites, we're looking on, for every resource we have on, are there different techniques, are there different ways that we can do this more efficiently, more cost effectively. It's amazing how you got half the communities that are running water say a pencil lead, and the other half say a pencil width. You've got some communities that are saying, run it, but we're not gonna adjust your bills.
Right.
Others say, well, we're gonna give you a $30 credit, and some like us are saying, we'll credit you for the water that you're using. So it's really all over the place.
There are those that figure their only responsibility is the main.
Correct.
They have nothing to do with
Yes.
the lateral, period.
Yes.
Correct. And that's always been our policy. It's not a written policy, but it's our policy that the city owns up to the curb stop. That is the point where we control the flow of water to and from a structure. And so because of that, I believe that's the premise behind the way that the policy was written, that we'll participate in helping thaw those.
Thank you, Jeff.
Councilmember Cody.
Nothing.
Councilmember Zoll.
Nothing.
Councilmember Dixon.
Nothing.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
No, Your Honor.
Councilmember Woodruff.
Nothing.
Councilmember Gus.
Yeah, I want to throw a shout out and a thank you to the DPW and the fire team for their work at Taylor Street. No loss of life. I know there's some structural issues, but great work and a long day, and we appreciate that effort. It seems like this year has been a year for fire, so last year and this year. And again, Jeff and your team, thank you for all your efforts for taking care of those free zones.
And I'm nothing. Motion to adjourn.
I made that motion. I'll accept it.